In this video, I'm going to replace this carpet with this LVP flooring. And we're going to do it right now. I'm at a friend's house right now, and they asked me to replace this carpet with a new vinyl floor. When I came over here to talk about doing this floor, the things that we talked about are things that you should consider when you're doing a floor before you rip out anything that's here already, like this carpet. Think about the brand, think about the type of floor. I always recommend 100% waterproof, a durable floor, scratch resistant, and a lifetime warranty like this stuff here. This video is not sponsored by DuraLux. There's a ton of different brands out there, so just choose what works for you. But this one has all of the qualities that I mentioned. So make sure you pick a good floor. And another thing that might determine what floor you would use is what is underneath. So I always like to go to a corner like this, grab some pliers, grab the carpet, tear this up, and you can see this is actually concrete, which is not a bad thing. I know that this is going to be a nice solid surface for this floor to go on top of. You just have to make sure that the type of floor that you get can go over concrete. If this is a basement or something like that where it's below grade, there's definitely going to be some moisture coming through, so you will have to do some kind of vapor barrier. Whatever that flooring company recommends, you should use that. You could use like a 6mm plastic. I don't think we need it on this because the floor looks like it's been painted, and this is actually above grade. If you look out the window, you can see we are not in a basement. So I don't think we're gonna have the typical problems like the moisture coming up from the ground, any of the hydrostatic pressure, anything like that. But I am gonna put an underlayment down just in case. It is also a moisture barrier, but it also adds a little extra cushion, and it claims to add a little warmth to the floor. I would probably pick up some floor leveler just in case, because you might have some low spots, some high spots, and you might have to level the floor a little bit. You might have to sand down areas. It all depends on what the floor is, but you want to be as close to level and even as possible when you're doing this floor. Another thing to consider when you're doing this is we're actually going to plan on continuing this floor eventually throughout the hallway and into this bedroom over here, and that is totally fine, but you need to read the instructions on whatever brand you get, because some brands recommend splitting, say at the door, and putting in some molding to give the floor some space to move around after a certain amount of square footage is laid down. With this stuff, it is a staggering 6,400 square feet, so I think we're covered. We could do this house 6 times over. Just keep that in mind. And the reason I'm bringing all this stuff up is because in every single different brand's instructions, they have these things laid out for a reason. And the reason, I believe, is so that if somebody comes here to check the floor because it is defective or whatever the case, if the flooring company takes a look at it and it's improperly installed, you used it over a different type of floor, you didn't use a moisture barrier, all this stuff, if you didn't break it up with some molding, then it won't be covered under warranty. So read the instructions for whatever floor you get so that your warranty is covered. Or don't. It's up to you. The first step for me is to tear up this old carpet. I'm also going to be removing this baseboard so that I can put new stuff down to the floor. So I'll take the baseboard out, take the carpet out, put new trim down. You do need to leave an expansion gap anywhere around any of the walls because this stuff can move around with humidity levels and the changes of the season. So if you do just butt the floor up, leave that 1/4 inch to the baseboard, and then you can cover it with 1/4 round if you want, or tear the baseboard up, put it back down. Just make sure you leave that 1/4 inch gap. So, enough yapping. Let's tear this carpet up, take this baseboard off, and start the floor. Oh, I gotta break it. Well, this floor is coming up eventually anyway, so. To make it easy, I'm going to cut this up in pieces. And the best way to cut this stuff is either a hooked blade, or go on the back side and cut it from the back side. Bye. Now I need to take this pad up. Let's see how it's attached. Ugh. I think they did like maybe little glue spots. So I have to scrape that up wherever it's attached. I'm going to take all the tack strip off. Should come off pretty easy. Oh, I said the E word. Don't ever say easy. And then I can scrape up all this. Make sure that's cleaned up. I should have brought a scraper. Why didn't I bring a scraper? As long as I get this all clean, I'm okay with it. That's better. Okay, all the tack strip is out. Now we're going to take this baseboard off. This stuff we don't have to be super careful with because we're not reusing it, but I want to take a knife and cut along the top of it so that we don't end up tearing this drywall paper off. Cut here. And I believe the new stuff is going to be higher than this, so it should cover a lot of imperfections. So when I do this, I want to be careful. You could also put like a taping knife here against the wall if you had one. I forgot mine. This one, we can get it started right here. I want to cut that caulking on the top. I'm making an executive decision on this baseboard in here. I'm not going to tear it up because it's sort of breaking apart. I could be really careful, but I think it's going to be much easier to just get quarter round to go on top of the floor once we butt it to it. So I'll just leave it there and then leave a 1/4 inch gap and do quarter round. Just in the closet. Everywhere else, new baseboard. All right, anything that needs to be tore up is removed. I'll just have to go along and scrape wherever the glue is holding down the pad. But I can clean all this up, sweep up the floor, make it nice, and continue on. Probably should have set this up and thrown the stuff in here first, huh? Oh well. Just want to get it as clean as you possibly can. And even wash it if you want. You just definitely don't want any nails left over or any uneven surfaces where it could cause the floor to have a pivot point and would ruin the floor. Well, good news, I don't see any signs of moisture, no water staining, no mold, nothing like that, so I'm not worried about water. At this point, you would fill in the floor if you have to do some floor leveler, if you have some uneven spots, or if you have to do some sanding, if you have a wood floor. Just get the subfloor to where it's good. This one is going to be perfect for this floor, so now we can put our underlayment down. So this is the underlayment. It is also a moisture barrier, and it's pretty expensive, so try and install it the correct way. This piece right here, this is a little strip that you can peel, and it has adhesive on the back of it. This is sticky, so that is going to go down just like this. So I'm going to roll this out, I'm going to cut it long, and then this piece folds out, and then that sticky goes on top of this. And you only butt this blue to the other blue. You don't want to overlap it. Let me show you. And roll it out. Here. Now I can take this piece, fold it out. This is what's going to connect to the adhesive piece. So you don't have to buy seam tape, so that's good. So now that I have this butted up, this is unfolded, I just want to start peeling this back so it'll stick. Just make sure it's even all the way before you start doing this. And just pull it. There we go. What's that? It's a nail. They tell you to go 2 inches up the wall. That'd be ideal with new construction, but when you're working around stuff that already has trim and everything, and then you got to put baseboard on this, that doesn't make sense to me. I know that's probably for the vapor barrier purposes, but I'm not worried about moisture in here, so I'm not going to go up the wall 2 inches. No thanks. I can peel this one off and stick it down. Before I start laying down my floor, something that I want to take into account is if this room is square, meaning if this side of the room is bigger than that side of the room, there might be things going on with it. No house is perfect. So what I like to do is measure on one side of the room compared to the other. So, of course, this room isn't exactly perfect. You have all these kind of jogs and everything over here. So I'm just gonna go as far as I can. And what I've done is I've taken my nice and long level right here and kind of extended this wall. So that will act as this wall and I can get a better measurement. You could also snap a chalk line if you wanted to. So I'm gonna take my tape measure and I'm gonna measure this side of the room. Make sure I go to the same place. I'm underneath that heat to the drywall. And I wanna measure to this wall. And this is 127 1/8. Now, I wanna take my tape and go to the other side of the room. Over here, on the other side of this level is 127 1/8, which means that is perfect. So what I can do is start my floor like I want to do against that wall and have a 1/4 inch evenly spaced all along that wall because you need that 1/4 inch for expansion. So that's great. And in a normal circumstance where you're just doing one room, you can go to town and lay your floor. But in my case, what we want to do is extend this floor eventually throughout this hallway. We're coming out this hallway and into this bedroom, and then we're going around here and we're going all the way to the front of the house. So really, ideally, you would want the floor to be perfect here. And the reason for measuring all this is because you don't want to have, let's say, an inch down to nothing over a rip like this, where you can tell that the floor is way off. So I'm going to do some measuring to see if we can make that happen. And if we can't, we might have to do a transition strip over by that doorway. So now I can already see an issue with this being an old house, or just a house that wasn't built perfectly. That happens. If I measure to this level here and just to this door jamb here, this is 34 1/4. And then if I go to this other side, it is 34 1/2. So already I'm off a 1/4 inch within 2 feet here. And then if I measure to this door trim out here, (128 1/8). And then I go to the other side, try and get a measurement. And unfortunately, this isn't a perfect science, and it's going to be different for every house, but I have 128 3/8. So as it stands between this doorway and that wall, if I shift that side of the floor a 1/4 inch this way, I'll be even right here, and then I'll be even up against that wall. But that would also make it so that I'm not perfectly even against this wall, which I wouldn't mind as long as this ends up being more even in the front of the house. So another thing I'm going to try and check is if that wall is square with the front of the house. As you can see here, this is an example of houses not being perfect. So I'm going to try and put this here where the floor potentially could go, and then measure off of this level over here against the door in the front. And then hopefully that will tell me if my floor is in the right place. You can also snap a line through here to get a more accurate measurement, but there's really nothing to measure off over here besides the door. So also, if I measure right now, I'm not tight to this trim here, but I am tight over there. So what I'll do is I'm going to measure an inch off of here and then an inch off of here. And that'll get me away from this corner, which is out further. And that should give me a more accurate measurement against that front door. So another thing I can do to extend this level is to make a mark right here and then bring the level this way. So now I got that on those lines. I'll measure off of the front door, and that's about 73 and 15/16 here. 73 and 15/16. Wow. So it seems like if I put my floor a 1/4 inch further on the right side, looking at that back wall, that will bring it even to that door. It'll make it even on the bedroom door, and it will make it even against the front door. So that's what I'm gonna do. If you can measure like that, if you're doing a hallway or going into another bedroom or something like that, you can do that. Worst case scenario, you can do a transition strip at the door and start all over. But I think this is gonna work. So what I'm gonna do is open up a couple boxes, and that will give me more variations in the pattern so it looks more random. So I'll make a stack randomly. You can mix up more than 3 if you want. All right, I can hear you guys. You've been yelling at me in the comments, and throughout this video, I'm sure you've seen me. I'm gonna wear knee pads, okay? So I'm gonna start with a full piece, and this part is gonna go towards the wall. I'm gonna lay it in like this, where this is to the right. It's gonna go just like this, but I'm not gonna put it in place yet. What I'm gonna do is hold it out here. Because of this heat, I'm gonna put the entire row together first, and then I can slide it underneath. It's just gonna be way easier doing it that way. And this is how you do it. Super, super simple. With these seams, you just get them nice and tight, nice and even on each end. And right here, you want to get this seam tight. You can see there's a lip. I like to use a regular hammer, but that's another thing you guys yell at me about. So I'm going to try using this one. And all you want to do is lightly tap this together until it's nice and tight and flush. Just like this. Perfect. Next piece. Just butt it tight here. And I can't stress enough how important this seam is. If you don't get this seam right, none of your floor is gonna lock together properly. So just get it as tight as possible right here, get it even right here, and then get it nice and tight and flush. And on this one, I'm gonna use a rubber hammer because there's more than one way to do this. The instructions actually recommend a rubber hammer, so let's try that. Yeah, I don't like that. The seam is perfect, but I don't like the feeling because it's too bouncy. Next piece. Line it up, and I'm going to use a regular hammer. Uh-oh. You can use whatever you want, just be careful. Looks good. Now we got to do our cut, but before that, I want to make sure that I have a 1/4 inch gap on this end. I'm going to have to rip down some shims because under that heat, there's not a lot of room. So I need some tiny, tiny shims that are 1/4 inch wide. Really should have brought a chop saw. I'm gonna slide my whole row of flooring this way so I can get a shim. This is ones that I ripped 1/4 inch by 1/4 inch because of this heat. I want to make sure I can get them out of there afterwards too. Throw it in there like that. Slide the floor back so it butts up to it. Good. So now for this cut piece, I'm going to take a full and then I'm going to flip it to the opposite way that it actually goes. And I'm going to butt it to the wall. And I can just measure from this seam, or I could put in my 1/4 inch spacer right here. Hold it like that so it's even. And then right here, I can mark it. And that's going to be my cut. I have this set up here and I'm going to hold my square. This is one way to cut this stuff. Hold it to my line. Just take a utility knife. Score this a couple times. Watch your fingers. And then you should be able to break it. Just like that. And I'll put my piece in here. Same thing, make sure it's tight. And I kind of like this hammer, guys. Thanks for the suggestion. Perfect. 1/4 inch. Doesn't have to be absolutely perfect. This one's like a 1/16 of an inch off. Totally fine. Now we can slide our floor back. I'm going to put a 1/4 inch spacer over here, right to where I measured. And then in line with where I measured over here, I'm going to do a 1/2 inch. Right about here. 2/4 together. And then I'm going to slide this whole floor back. Be very gentle. Pushing this floor back. These seams can separate. Now that my floor is slid back, 1/4 inch spacer there, 1/2 inch there, I'm just going to put some more spacers on each plank so that when I put the next pieces in, it doesn't move this around. So I'm going to have to use 1/4 inch spacers and then some extras. First row done. On to the second, and let me apologize for talking so much, but I feel like this is important. For this floor, the manufacturer's recommendations for installation is that you at least have a 12-inch or longer piece to start your row. To me, that means also having a 12-inch piece at your end cut. So if you have a perfectly square room, I would recommend measuring out. Let's say you measure and mark on the floor for a 12-inch piece, and by the time you get to the end, you have something smaller than a 12-inch piece. Try and make that so that you have at least 12 inches on either end. You also need to stagger the seams 8 inches, which means on the second row, you're going to want to have the piece like this, at least 8 inches between this seam and this seam. Like that. So you have to keep that in mind when you're measuring for that. The company also recommends to have at least a 2-inch piece for your last row. So against the wall, at least a 2-inch rip. Some people like to have it even. Again, if you have a square room, this is going to be easy, where you measure to make sure that you're going to have over 2 inches here and over 2 inches there, and you can even move the floor to where they're even. That would be great. In my case, and in a lot of cases, I have this cubby, I have this closet, I'm going into the hallway, I'm going into another bedroom. So for me, measuring out to make sure that you have a 12-inch piece on each end, and every rip that you make to be more than 2 inches is not really possible. So I'm not going to make a huge effort to make it possible on 1 or 2 pieces, however it works out, because there's going to be spots where it's going to happen regardless. And I feel like playing the lottery might be the best way in this case. And if you have 1 piece, does that void the manufacturer's warranty compared to if you tried to do your best and mathematically it didn't work out for the rest of the floor? You could try and concentrate on 1 room at a time and put a transition strip and get every room perfect, but it's totally up to you. I'm just telling you what the manufacturer recommends for this floor. Again, read your instructions. Here's a quick little aggravating thought that pops in my head about this, is that these companies make this floor so DIY friendly, and then they have all of these rules surrounding the installation process, and I feel like any little thing that you do could void the warranty. So while they make it so easy for homeowners and DIYers to do it themselves, it also is like, good luck. Probably not going to cover the warranty if you mess up. Okay, I will stop. That's it. Let's get back to the floor. I'm going to take my cutoff piece from that side, and I want to make sure that it's at least 12 inches as per the manufacturer's instructions. This one's 19, so that's going to work. I'm going to do a random pattern on this so that it looks as natural as possible. So I'm going to take this one, go as close to this heat as possible, and then I can slide it like this. I just want to go in at an angle like this, slide it back here, the 1/4 inch spacer. Now I'm going to take a tapping block, and it goes right on this edge right here. Do not put it here. You'll mess this up, and the next piece that you put in won't go together properly. And you just want to give it a little tap to make sure that this seam is going together properly. Good. Then we can do a full piece. So the next piece I'm going to put right here at an angle. They say 30 degrees, and I'm going to want to butt it tight to this. So you hold this up at an angle, and basically you want to make this gap disappear, just like that. And then as you do that, you push down right here on that seam. Make sure it's in the right place, and then you lightly lock it together. See, there's a little gap here, so that's where you use this block, tap it in. This floor might move until we got a lot of floor together. Just be careful. There we go. Do the same down here. Just a little tap. Okay. So you basically do that the whole way. Just make sure this seam and this seam is tight. Make sure where these 2 pieces meet against the other board is all tight. You don't want to see any gaps. This is made to look seamless. So for this cut piece, I'm gonna make it about 28 inches right here. That's at least 8 inches away from that one. And that's what I like doing, is staggering all these seams so it looks more natural and more random. A chop saw would be way quicker than a utility knife like this, but it works. Always make sure there's no debris in here as you come back to something like this. Any kind of sawdust or anything, little chipped pieces from this floor, you want to get out of there, or your seam won't go together properly. And you'll know when it doesn't go together properly. It won't feel even. It'll look bad compared to the other seams. Now that I know this floor is in the right place, shimmed properly against the wall, I just measured again and we're good. So I'm going to take flooring and actually put it over here, and I'm going to weigh this down so that way when we're tapping this way, this doesn't move at all. You can still move this floor around at this point with a couple rows like this to get it perfectly. Just measure again, measure 3 times, and make sure you're good, and then you can go to town. Do the rest of the floor. Mix these up. All right, so I'm gonna have to cut around here, and I'm just gonna lock this in like this, where it's supposed to go. And then I have my 1/4 inch right here. See how good I did? Perfect. And take my 4-foot level and hold it on the edge there, right to that wall. So that way I can measure here and here. Right here, 1.5 inches minus 1/4, 1.25 inches, 1.25 inches minus 1/4, 1 inch. And then I can mark that. Now I'm going to cut this out with a table saw. I might as well cut that with a jigsaw. Got a nice fine finish blade on here. It'll cut through this like butter. That's actually a laminate blade. Also cuts through like butter. Make sure all this stuff is off of here, because that can get into the seams and mess you up. Let's see how we did. Good. Yeah, I'm switching around with the different hammers. Gotta be careful of stuff like this. That looks okay, but it is actually broken. And that's from the factory. Either that or I accidentally kicked it around, but that's no good, because eventually that's gonna break right off and look terrible. So keep an eye out for that stuff. There's something about this piece I don't like. The seam, it's just slightly raised right here. So I'm gonna take it out and put a different piece in. So you just lift it up like this, just wiggle it, and it'll pop right out. So I don't see anything in here that would do that. Let's try another piece. I'll use this as a cut for that end. All right, so it did it again. So I'm guessing it's this piece. So I'm gonna take this out. And unfortunately, if you look back here, I've already started doing pieces. But let me show you how quick and easy these come up. Wiggle and slide. There's one, and then this one here. Wiggle, lift it up carefully, like that. And then we can take this piece out. And I'll use this as a cut down here. Sometimes these just get a little messed up. So I'll try a different piece. So we're about halfway, and that is about all of the waste so far. Oh, right here too. When you're doing this, you should calculate for 10%. That's way less than 10%, but you want 10% of waste. So what I'm trying to do to eliminate that much waste is I will cut or start a piece over here, and then I'll take that piece and bring it over here. And if it's really long and I need a short piece there, say like this, I will get a new piece, a brand new piece, and make a cut with the short piece. That might seem counterproductive, but then you can use this whole big piece as a starter for this side. So just be mindful as you go through these pieces and try and have as little waste as possible. For this piece right here, get it in like normal. Put that seam first, and then if you have to tap it this way, I recommend tapping it anyways, just to get it tight. You can use this handy little tool, tap it like this. That should be good. The other method that I use if I don't have that, or when I didn't have that, is I take a pry bar and I pry it this way so that it's prying towards, like don't pry this way because you could pull it this way, but pry it like this, just a little bit, keep some pressure on it, and then just take a hammer and very lightly tap right here. And that seam will get nice and tight. So my next piece, I'm gonna start getting into this door trim. And what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna undercut this so I can slide my pieces of flooring right under it. So I have a scrap piece, and I'm gonna use an oscillating tool. So just ride along this and cut this out, and I'll cut this jam, and then I'll cut the back side here. Just the door trim, not the baseboard back here. So let's cut this first. I gotta try and get those pieces out of there. Now this can be tricky. One thing you could do is flip which side you're running this floor from. So you could start over here so that you can get under that trim and then work your way that way. But the thing about that is you have to put the other pieces under this and over at an angle into this at the same time. So it's, I mean, kind of just as tricky. So what I'm gonna try and do is start it like this, get it as tight as I can to that trim, and then it's locked in here. Now I just gotta kind of hold this down and try and wiggle it underneath there and hold it at an angle at the same time over here. Kind of like that. Oh, too much. But now I'm locked in right here. So now I just want to get this tight. Same thing, up at an angle. And I can use a pry bar to get that over. Tight, like that. And lock this seam in. this one. Cool. All right, here, I'm gonna lock it in. Put it where it's supposed to go, right there. And then right here, because I want this tight, I'm gonna take out the 1/4" rule and actually get it tight. The good thing is there's some space under this drywall for it to move around. So I'm gonna mark it right here and right here. I know that I'm able to go in that far because the piece is already in that far. So I'm just gonna measure how far that is right here. I'll mark here. And I'll cut that piece out. All right, I'm gonna get this lined up here. And this is the tricky part. As I lift this up, I start to lock it in this way, kind of like that. Use a little helper. This stuff is bendable. There we go. Now, just need that to get locked in. Let's see. Piece is going to go in just like this. Make sure it's good. Now when I put this piece in, this will kind of lock it in, and if this is out at all, it'll help to make it straight. See, it can come out like this a little bit. There we go. Lock this in. And now, to get this piece in, it's the same but different. Just hold it up at an angle. Like this, make sure it's even on both sides. Make sure it's locking into this piece. Just wanna... There we go. Make sure it snaps in. Use my handy tool. Luckily, this floor doesn't need a whole lot of tapping this way. That's nice. One thing I've noticed about this floor is these seams lock together really easily, like this. Really easily and nicely. It's the only downside about using power tools. Stuff gets everywhere. Before I get too close to this with the floor, I'm going to undercut the jamb and the trim. Might as well do these ones, the door trim. I'm also going to cut just barely in here. Get that little piece off. I'm gonna start with this middle piece because I have this right here. So instead of having this land wherever it lands and then notching around here and fighting like I did with the other one, I'm gonna do something different. I'm gonna start it right here so that this piece will be easier to lock in, and this piece, I can put this in first and then slide it this way. And then I can fill in that piece and this piece. So first, I'm gonna slide this under to get an idea of how much room I have in there. Just gonna go right here. And then I'll line it up about there. I'm gonna go right here so that this right here won't be showing. Take out that little piece right there. So now I got my notch here. It's gonna go under here. So I want to hold it like this. And I can't really lock this in completely right here, but I can have it pretty close. I can just pull up on this end and try and slide it like this. And over here, I left enough where I can slide it right past. So that way I can lock another piece in here. Now I want to lock this piece in this way before I move it back. Get that tight. Over here. Then I can lock a piece in here. And then I can take my block and tap this so that that will end up going under the trim. Just enough. Something like that, a little bit more. We're under here, and we're under here. Okay. I have to go under this trim, under this trim, and under that trim. Not by much though. I still have to go under, but it's really not going to be by much. Unfortunately, I'm going to have a small, maybe 1/4 inch piece right here that goes under, and the same thing on this side. It's just one of those things that would be impossible to calculate all of those situations. So this is what I got. But what I did to make this easier is I measured these out, and I'm gonna have a split right here. And I think that'll make it easier, I hope. So I'm gonna put this one in first. Let's see. And I think I'm going to, oh, actually, this will be passed, so I can just do this. If that's the case, I'm gonna put this one in first. Those are the kind of decisions that you make on the fly. So this one I do have to go under the trim. Let's try and lock it in a little bit. And then slide. Okay, 1/4 inch over here. And then I'll get this piece in. There we go. So I'm under the trim here and locked in careful. Put my foot right here, pry that over slightly, keep pressure on it, and then hammer this over. Just to make sure this is locked in place. Nice. I'll put this little tiny notch in here. So these pieces are actually going to be temporary, or they could be permanent. It's up to them. When they go to do this floor, they can easily take these out, slide them out like this, and put new pieces in so that when it goes like this, you'll have another piece to lock into and go this way. So for now, whether or not they want to put a transition strip here, do a different floor, or do a transition strip and do this floor, whatever the case, at least I can put these here, and these will protect the groove from getting stepped on and getting messed up for when they continue the flooring. So, temporary, permanent, whatever you want. Let's just slide this in. I made just enough so that the baseboard would cover it. For now, slide it in. Tap, tap, taparoo. Done. Okay, floor is done. Now we just got to do the baseboard. I'm just going to go along and scrape all the caulking off carefully. The new baseboard is going to go up a little bit higher, so it'll cover this. Kind of factored for that when we were talking about getting new base. I guess I'll take this newspaper off. I'm scraping this downward, so I don't want to accidentally go up and actually rip the paper. See that? That's what we don't want happening up here. And just making sure everything's clear in the closet so I can put my quarter round down. It looks good. Nothing, no nails protruding or anything. Move on. So here's my list for my baseboard. These are all my measurements, and some of these I can put right in place. Some of them I have to put together and then cut again. And then these are for quarter round, same thing. I marked all my studs with some painter's tape, so I know where to nail. I'm gonna put this baseboard in. Nice. It covers it right up. I'm not going to nail into the floor because it needs to move around. Now I just gotta caulk in everything, fill the nail holes, clean this place up, and we're good to go. Well, I gotta say, this looks awesome. Definitely a lot more echoey in here, and it really does feel nice when you walk on it. And my friends are happy, so that's all that counts. If you enjoyed the video, let me know in the comments below. And if you would have done things differently, definitely let me know. I want to know so I can learn and everybody else can learn from you and each other. If you want to see a ton of behind the scenes footage, you can click the join button below to join my YouTube memberships or the link in the description over to my Patreon page, and that will help support this channel. But the best thing you could possibly do is watch another one of my videos right at the end of this one, after the outtakes. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one. Ow. Ow. Should have knee pads. Oh, that hurt. Ugh. Ooh, some coupons. Oh, they expired October 1st, 1994. So that's too bad. No. That was stupid. You know how to read Roman numerals? What's L?
Strawberry shortcake.
Yep. Cute. I'm going to be pushing that floor this way on this side. Does that make sense, Lauren?
I have no idea.
I see you looking at my broom like that. Don't make fun of my broom. This has a special place in my heart. It was left at my house in the basement, and I've been using it since I moved in there. And it was used years before that. I love my broom. It's my broom. Don't make fun of it. Check, 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 check. Did I go the opposite way? Around this first cut on that corner. But it's totally up to you. But it's totally up to you. But it's totally up to you. I'm just telling you, are you kidding me? But it's totally up to you. Watch your leg, Matt. Ah, fly. It's a little tight. That's okay. I'm not worried about it at all. Call the cops. Ah, it was not my finger. Fly! Watch it. Tasty snacks and treats. Oops. And treats. Oop. Treats. I can't go slow. I can't. Gotta get this done. 10, 15, 16, left hand, 45. On the backwards, man. Backwards, man. Okay. Yeah. Sounded like that song, right? Yeah, 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 yeah. In a club with my homies.
Sure did. Thought I was going to be the only one thinking it.
Okay.